Hello and welcome to ChinnyVision. This time, it's Continental Circuit. Yes, you heard me right, I said Continental Circuit. That's apparently the proper name for Continental Circus. The game was released in 1987 by Taito and hit the arcades. Apparently when it was translated to English, there was a mistranslation and it should have been called Continental Circuit, but it ended up being called Continental Circus. It's regarded by some, and reported by magazines at the time, as the first true 3D racer in the arcades. I don't think that's true, really. It's a 2D scaling game like Outrun and Space Harrier. The scaling's better than those games, but then again the game came out later, although it does give a nice 3D effect. So we're starting off on the Atari St. Just loading this up on my 520 STFM, and a nice digitised screen there of a Grand Prix car, presumably with the sponsorship logos touched out. So there you can see the circuit we're going to be racing on. It's Brazil. We've got 3 opportunities to pit stop around the track, and all we've got to do is qualify better than 80th, and we're starting off at 100. And you can see the 3D effect as we come down there. It's a nice replication of the arcade here. I actually prefer the music here on the ST version to the arcade version. And off we go. There are pit stops as you drive along, and that's because you're going to take on damage. If you touch something once, you end up with smoke coming out the back, and you hit it again, and there you go, I've hit something there. It's saying pit in. Now, perhaps up here there will be a pit, here we go, pit stop. So we can go in there and get our car repaired. This was quite a novelty at the time. That said, the pit stops are slightly annoying in that actually you can just continue to race and take on more damage, at which point your car will blow up because it takes about the same amount of time off as it would to pit stop in the first place. So down to 100th now to qualify in 80th. It is quite a challenge because 1 touch and you get damaged, 2 touches you're dead, and therefore it makes the game really difficult. In the arcade it's a little bit easier, the roads seem to be a little bit wider, but here on the ST it's more of a challenge. We crossed over to the Amiga version. This version's running on my Amiga 1200 that's accelerated, so it's running quite fast, much faster than the Amiga 500 would have been. You've got the sampled speech here. The speed makes it incredibly difficult and slightly silly to play, to be honest, but slightly improved graphics, more colours, sampled engine noises, although it sounds like a Hoover, to be fair. And there we've spun there, and we're going to probably burst into flames, just as cars do when they crash. Well, the ST and Amiga versions, well, they're pretty much identical. The ST version will run slightly faster than the Amiga 500 version. As I say, my Amiga 1200 there is accelerated. There's not much to pick between them, really. Moving over to the Spectrum, and got the same music as you have on the ST, monochrome graphics. And off we go. In a minute when the lights turn green. Exactly the same setup. It's on a multi-lap race. You just go through past the checkpoints, and then after you've done 1 lap, that's it. All you're doing is qualifying. You're never actually racing, so to speak. All you've got to do at each stage is just qualify higher than the target. So on this stage you've got to qualify higher than 80th, and then on the next stage it's 60th, 40th, and so on. It's always going to put you 20 places above where you finish. So I've got a pit here, but I've got the damage there. And yeah, on the Spectrum it's fairly decent game. Again, the problems with the game are problems the original arcade version had. It's not a bad racer, a little bit tricky, you've got to avoid damage. As I say, with the 16-bit versions, unfortunately, 1 touch and you damage, 2 touches and you're dead, and that can actually be game over in effect, because too much damage slows you down too much. Now, the game was ported to the MSX, so this is going to be interesting to see if this is a specky port. Now, unfortunately, 5 times I've tried to load this on my MSX, and we're seeing the loading screen here actually from my HitBit, and every time I load it, it crashes. So we're going to have to do the one thing we don't usually do here on ChinnyVision, have to use emulation to show the game because it is quite interesting. It's a complete and utter copy of the Spectrum version. Except, first of all, there is no sound at all. And secondly, it is painfully and woefully slow. Running the Spectrum version on the right-hand side of the screen there, you can see the speed difference. The MSX version is arthritic. Oh, it's like it's been ported in a day from the Spectrum. It's absolutely dreadful. Moving over to the Amstrad CPC, I'm going to play this version with a cheat just so we can get a little bit further into the game. Nice colourful loading screen here, quite similar to the ST. One of the features of the arcade version is there's things like weather as well, which I've not seen in all the versions. I haven't got far enough in the ST and Amiga versions, I'm afraid, to say if that's there. So again, we've got this AY music again, third time we've heard it, although we didn't hear it on the MSX because there's no music there. And look at these wonderful colourful graphics. Really nice here on the Amstrad, mode 0. And off we go. As I say, I'm playing with a cheat just to be upfront with you guys. And nice bit of speed here. For an 8-bit version, this looks really, really nice. Car's a little bit more controllable than some of the other versions. A little bit twitchy still. I was taking on some damage there. I've got this set to always qualify, so regardless of how low down I finish, it's still, that to be said, a little bit fiddly because of the width of the road. I'm just going to look at one of the later levels here. This is Spain. And you've got different music each time, each level you go to. You've got a different background there, but the green grass and everything else looks the same. So a little bit repetitive there. The scenery always seems to be the same apart from that background. And look at this, we've got rain. I think it's one of the only racing games on the Amstrad that actually has rain on it. Now in the arcade, you have to pit to put on wet tyres. I don't think you have this on the Amstrad. I think it's just, I'm going to pit anyway there, but that wasn't intentional. That's one of the things about the pits. If you go too far left, you will end up pitting. So I don't know if I've got wet tyres on now. I don't think there's a tyre difference on the 8-bit systems. This is playing really nicely, it has to be said. I bought this on budget and thought it was fantastic value for money for the $2.99 I paid for it, because Mastertronic did rush this out. Well, didn't rush it out, but it seemed to come out very quickly on budget. Overall, on the Amstrad, really nice game. Really nice game indeed. Moving across to the Commodore 64. And no AY tune this time, it's the SID. And off we go to start. Oh, and why's my car got a satellite dish on the back of it? That's bizarre. Most Commodore 64 racing games are a bit arthritic, so it'd be interesting to see if this one is speedy. Yeah, there's a nice turn of speed here. Corners look a bit blocky as you go around, but the handling's really nice. The handling is really nice indeed. It does look like a game from many years before in terms of the graphical presentation, but there's speed here. The car handles well. It's just a shame about those graphics and the cars with the satellite dishes on the back. Take on a bit of damage there. Now, it would be easy to say, well, this game on the C64 looks pretty rotten. Well, if you're looking at a static screen, it does. The graphics do look like something from many years before. But I'm enjoying this. This is, oh, taking some damage there. This is one of the later levels, and you've got a different colour sky. Not seen any rain yet on the Commodore 64 version. I think this is apparently Monaco, although it looks nothing like Monaco to me. This, of all the versions, is probably the easiest to play because the car handles the best. So look at Continental Circus. Well, it's an arcade game that was designed to get you to put 10p's into the machine and to quickly play it. It's not like some races where you've got many hours to play the game, even games like WC Le Mans where you've got several laps to do, or Burning Rubber on the GX4000 where it's only 4 laps but there's quite a long circuit to go round. Each of these levels is over fairly quickly. But looking at the versions, well, the ST and Amiga versions are very nice. You're going to need to run this on a 500 if you've got an Amiga, because it's too fast if you've got an accelerated machine. But both those versions are very nice indeed. The Spectrum, Commodore and Amstrad versions, well, the Commodore 64 is the ugliest version, but it probably plays the best. The Amstrad version looks the nicest, but gives the Commodore 64 a really good run for its money. The Spectrum version is quite a nice game, but to be honest, I'd rather play the other 2 versions. Which leaves us with the MSX, which is just... They converted that game in a day, I'm sorry. If you want to play the MSX version, load up your Spectrum emulator, turn it down to a quarter speed, turn down your speakers, and they've got the MSX version. But on all the systems apart from the MSX, Continental Circus is a game worth looking at. There's no long-term appeal there, but it's quite a decent racing game.